Good morning.
Good morning and welcome to Media Pulse.
The media headlines in the past 1 week, Clare, have been all about Thaksin and Pita, the former Prime Minister, once again.
It's always like that.
Starting with the fallout from his much publicized campaigning on behalf of a candidate in Udon Thani in northeastern Thailand, the election that will take place tomorrow. And then his comments about how he expects his sister, Yingluck Shinawatra, a former Prime Minister, to come home to celebrate Songkran next April. And last but not least, charges against him before the Constitutional Court, charges that his opponents believe constitute attempts to overthrow the democratic system with the king as the head of state.
Well, at least I guess it's good news for him yesterday, just for a bit, is a relief because the court decides not to accept the charges for deliberation. So, yeah, he can just relax and focus on the local election for now, I guess.
Right.
And the vote by the 9 judges of the Constitutional Court is very clear. The vote is 7-2 in favor of dropping the charges against Thaksin. So what are the charges against him? Most of the charges involve alleged influence exerted behind decisions made by the Thai party. The first one was an accusation that he used Thai party to coerce government agencies concerned, including the Corrections Department, the Justice Ministry, and the police hospital, to spare him from spending time behind bars and to grant him special privileges at the police hospital while he was recuperating there.
And number 2, colluding with the former Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Sen, to exploit energy and marine resources in overlapping maritime areas benefiting Cambodia. So with this one, we're talking about MOU 44 or the 2001 MOU.
And Thaksin was also accused of exerting influence over the formation of the Thai-led government and the appointment of Prime Minister, who is his daughter, Patchimanon. So meaning that in the formation of the coalition government led by her daughter, Thaksin has his hand on major decisions on which parties to be invited as part of the coalition.
And number 4, he was accused of forging cooperation between Thai and People's Parties to amend the constitution.
Of course, we all remember that Palang Pracharat Party, which is now a major opposition party, was once a member of the first Thai-led coalition government, but was dropped from the coalition in the second coalition led by Thaksin Shinawatra. And Thaksin was accused of being behind the exclusion of this party.
Yeah, I remember the fallout between him and General Prawit. Number 6 is coercing Thai party to adopt his own vision as the government's policy. So remember, he went on stage and laid out his vision for Thailand, and that was later compared to the policies of the Thai, which came out very close. So anyway.
So Thaksin survived one of these biggest challenges, and but we are not saying that he is totally out of the woods, because charges connected to his stay at the police hospital on the 14th floor, right? Remember that scandal?
Yes.
All the charges connected to that case are still pending. The National Anti-Corruption Commission is still investigating charges that he was granted special privileges, and some government agency might have to be held accountable for what happened. So those are charges that are still pending and still waiting to be decided upon.
He seems very confident though, because the night before that, he went on stage at Forbes CEO event. And he seemed confident.
Yeah, he was on the stage, and when was asked about his political journey or the challenges, you know what he said? He said, I have been to heaven and hell.
Right.
And I'm now back on earth. And earth is where I would rather be.
Yeah.
So, and said that that means I have nothing to be worried about or to be afraid of.
Well, it's true. Definitely, he has less to worry about for now because there are less political restraints for Thaksin now that the decision came out this way.
And now let's move on to the local elections in Udon Thani in northeastern Thailand. Kun Clare, as we all know that local elections in Thailand do not always get the attention of the media, much less the attention of the population at large, right?
Yeah, but this one is quite different. Yeah, it's being considered as maybe a proxy for confrontation between the Pheu Thai party and the opposition, as well as paving the way to the next election.
And it's all because of this one man, right? Kun Thaksin, the former prime minister, he spent 3 days in the province last week, helping with the election campaign of the candidate of Pheu Thai party, the core of the ruling coalition government. But what caught the attention of the media in particular in the past week was not the election itself, but how Thaksin turned the campaign that he helped wage into a war of words with the opposition party, the People's Party.
Yeah, well, Udon Thani, which is about 580 kilometers from Bangkok, is known as Pheu Thai's party political stronghold for the northeast. But the party's maintained virtually a political monopoly over the constituencies in the region for years. But something changed in the last election.
The problem is that in the last general elections, the party's dominance in the province was eroded when it lost 3 of the 10 House seats up for grabs then to 2 of the current opposition parties, one of them the People's Party. And the political analysts believe that the prospects for the Pheu Thai party in the next general election do not look very promising if it doesn't take any action to counter the political inroads made by the People's Party.
That's why he's been making all the stops in Udon Thani, right? He wants to make sure that the candidate from Pheu Thai, which is his daughter's party, wins tomorrow's election. Even though it's just one of a series of a local election, which normally shouldn't have any bearing on the larger general election.
No, both Pheu Thai party and Thaksin see the election tomorrow as an acid test of the parties and his own popularity. Thaksin also has his own pride and ego invested in the outcome of the election. Because judging from his campaign speeches, Thaksin still considers himself to be a darling of the constituents in the northeast, Udon Thani province in particular.
A darling. Well, Pheu Thai party's candidate is in fact already a favorite in the election tomorrow, but Thaksin has made it clear that he wants nothing short of a landslide victory to reaffirm his own popularity and that of the party. But it caught many by surprise when he suddenly took a dig at the People's Party in one of his campaign speeches, which led to a war of words, like you said, with the opposition party's key supporters. So let's briefly look at this headline, which focuses on the rivalry between the two. It says Thaksin versus Pita in the battle for Udon Thani, PAO.
PAO, the Provincial Administration Organization, which is the local administrative body.
Yeah, and we do have another headline as well, this one from PPTV, and this one says word by word, and it talks about the squabble between Thaksin and Pita in Udon Thani local election, and this article, if you go in and read it, they matched word for word, like phrases to phrases of the response between the two.
No, but out of the blue, I mean, Thaksin criticized the People's Party for trying to amend the lèse majesté law, better known as Article 112, the law which penalizes people who insult the monarchy. And Thaksin also criticized the party, the People's Party, for introducing too many bills to the House. Thaksin said something like, instead of trying to introduce new bills, why don't the People's Party spend more time trying to get rid of laws that are outdated
Yeah, he also said this, like at one point he even mocked Pita Limjaroenrat, the leader of the now defunct Move Forward Party, for being so anxious about the Udon Thani election that he felt compelled to rush back from the United States to support the People's Party candidate's campaign.
No, in fact, Kun Pita is a fellow at the Harvard University, right? And he rushed back. He did rush back to help with the campaign on behalf of the People's Party's candidate in the local election. So both Thaksin and Pita were in the province in their capacity as election campaign assistants of their respective parties. And this is the first time that the two very important political figures openly crashed.
From the party's leader to campaign assistants.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway.
But don't forget the fact that both Thaksin and Kun Pita have been disfranchised, right?
Correct, yes.
So he's not allowed to engage in any real political activities, with some exception, like help campaigning for the party's candidates in Udon Thani.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Kun Chaithawat Tulathon, which is a former key figure of the People's Party. He hit back at Thaksin as well and Thai Party by questioning the party's association with a drug and money laundering suspect. Kun Chaithawat also criticized Thaksin's political role and questioned the preferential treatment that the former Prime Minister received while recuperating at the police hospital.
Thai and the People's Party have maintained an uneasy relationship since last year. When their attempt to form a coalition government together fell through despite an initial agreement. They later broke up and abandoned their plan to set up a coalition together. And now they see each other as potential rival in the next elections.
Yeah, so between now and next year, early next year, there'll be a series of local elections happening across the country, which would seen as setting a stage for more competitions between the two parties. And it would not be a surprise if their rivalry leads to more open clashes like this one.
So political observers view these local elections as a test of the two parties' popularity and a preview of how they might perform in the next general elections.
Yeah, but you can be sure that Udon Thani was only the start for Kun Thaksin, and I guess we can expect the former Prime Minister to hit the campaign trail in other provinces to help Thai parties in the local election as well.
There could be question as to why the Thai party still needs to have Kun Thaksin present in all these campaigns in the local elections, Udon Thani and the ones that will follow. Because after all, it appears that Thaksin is the only truly marketable asset of the party at the moment.
Yeah, nobody stands out apart from him, right?
Remember Thaksin, what Thaksin used to say while he was still in self-exile in Dubai, right?
Yeah.
He kept claiming that the only reason he wanted to return home was to be with his grandchildren and nothing more. But well, does it look like he has been really spending time with his grandchildren?
Oh, he's been very busy on the campaign trail.
All right.
Anyway, so we talked about the brother. We're going to talk about the sister now. Kun Thaksin has managed to kick up another political storm this week because he gave an interview.
That's why he told the Nikkei Asia of Japan that he is trying to make sure that Yingluck Shinawatra, his sister, and a former prime minister can return to Thailand from her self-exile to celebrate the Songkran festival next year.
Yeah, Songkran, as you all know, is the famous water festival happening in mid-April, where, you know, water fights and all the rest of it.
And in the interview, Thaksin said, I don't see any problem that could prevent her, Kun Yingluck, from returning home. I think she could come back a little bit before that. It depends on timing and opportunity. This is what he told the Nikkei Asia. The interview was conducted while Thaksin was campaigning in Udon Thani last week. So that means that Thaksin still a figure of interest for foreign media.
Yeah, and he definitely has that in mind, the thing about bringing his sister home. And he didn't exactly say how his sister will return, obviously by plane. Obviously by plane, but how, as in how legally?
That's true. That's the big questions, legally speaking, right? No, Yingluck last week she posted on Facebook photos of her with her son, who she said has just received a PhD scholarship to study at the Imperial College London.
Very prestigious.
And the former Prime Minister is reported to have spent most of her time with her son in London.
Yeah, Kun Yingluck now is 57 and she has been in self-exile since 2017. She was ousted as Prime Minister in 2014 by the Constitutional Court for abuse of power, and she fled the country in 2017 on the exact day that she was scheduled to be in court to hear the verdict on the trial over the controversial rice subsidies program. And the court later sentenced her to 5 years in prison in absentia for negligence of duty, and that caused the state to suffer massive losses in the rice subsidy scheme.
So what did the Prime Minister Paetongtarn have to say about the comments by her father about her aunts? About her aunt.
Yeah, you better ask my dad.
Because Yingluck is Paetongtarn's aunt, right?
Yes, right.
But the Prime Minister, Kun Paetongtarn, seemed to be caught off guard when reporters asked her about Thaksin, saying that Yingluck would be home by next Songkran, right?
Yeah.
And this all she said, I mean Paetongtarn, you better ask Thaksin about it.
Yeah, and she also denied having any communications with her aunt Yingluck. Yeah, and it's not only Kun Paetongtarn which the media asked. Justice Minister Taweesotsong also told the media that his ministry has no information about Yingluck's reported plan to return. And he dismissed a reporter's question that there could be an arrangement for Yingluck's return based on what is known as Thaksin's model. He said if Yingluck was to return, she would have to oblige by the existing rules of the corrections department without exception.
So what is the Thaksin model? That's a big question.
Yeah.
Thaksin was ousted in a military coup d'etat in 2006 and went into self-exile. He returned to Bangkok briefly in 2008 before freeing the country again ahead of a court ruling against him.
Yeah.
He ended his self-exile and returned to Bangkok in August last year and was sentenced to 8 years in jail on corruption charges. But the former Prime Minister did not spend a single day behind bars.
Yeah.
Because only hours after being brought to the Bangkok remand prison, where he was supposed to serve his jail term, Thaksin was diagnosed with chest pains and erratic blood pressure. He was then rushed to the police hospital, and a week later he was granted a royal commutation, reducing his 8-year prison term to just 1 year.
Yeah, and then he spent 6 months recuperating at the police hospital amid accusations from critics that he had received preferential treatment. He was discharged from the hospital in February this year and granted a royal pardon in August, becoming a free man on the same day that his daughter Paetongtarn was formally appointed Prime Minister.
Thaksin's return and subsequent exoneration is widely reported to be part of a political deal that paved the way for his Pheu Thai party, or his daughter's Pheu Thai party, to become the core of the current ruling coalition government. Thaksin currently does not hold any formal positions in the party, but is widely known as its de facto leader. And political commentators were quoted by Thai media as speculating that the political deal that we just mentioned about was also designed to benefit Yingluck. So Thaksin's return, according to their analysis, was only a precursor.
I see. So that's the Thaksin model, right? So the political analyst Kun Thanaporn Siyakul said it's only a matter of time before you see Yingluck back in Thailand. And he also highlighted the ongoing initiative by the Corrections Department to amend regulations regarding the imprisonment of convicts, allowing them to serve their sentences outside of prison. Officially speaking, this amendment aims to address the issue of prison overcrowding by permitting convicts who meet specific criteria to serve their sentences at home or at a designated location outside of correctional facilities.
And the political analyst Kun Thanaporn half jokingly said that Kun Yingluck will not have to be as creative as Thaksin.
Creative.
She doesn't have to be as creative as Kun Thaksin to find her way back to Thailand. The corrections department is doing the work for her.
Yeah. I guess besides her longing to return home, there is this concept about assets of the Pheu Thai party, right? Because they also need her as well as Kun Thaksin to help with the popularity of the party, because these two remains popular, remains the popular figures of the party. I guess Thaksin plus Yingluck, without a doubt, would be the most valuable asset for the party in the next general election, where the party hopes to beat the People's Party and secure a majority.
Of course, the Pheu Thai's biggest rival, potential rival in the next election, of course, as we have been saying, is the People's Party, which was back then in the last general election was known as the Move Forward Party. And it emerged in the last election as the biggest winner. But it has been shunned by most other parties because of what is seen as its anti-establishment policies.
Yeah, well, Thaksin recently mentioned that Pheu Thai party would win as many as 200 house seats, almost half of the house seats that are up for grabs. So in the next general election, it remains to be seen. And well, if that happens, we should consider the much publicized political deal completed.
Now, in fact, it has been widely speculated that all these talks about this political deal was essentially designed to block the People's Party, previously known as the Future Forward Party, from being able to form a government. I think that's the bottom line of this whole deal. And it looks like they just step away from.
They're halfway through it now.
Halfway through it now.
Yeah, they need to bring one more person back. And
All right.
yeah, so let's move on to the issue of amending the Constitution. It's been in the headlines lately. So attempts by political parties to amend the Constitution or to write a new one seem to have hit a roadblock after members of the Senate and House of Representatives remain divided over the public referendum deal. So the public approval through a referendum is needed for the Constitution to be amended or for a new Constitution to be written.
Yes.
Right?
Of course, we remember that amending the Constitution or adopting a new one was among election campaign promises made by many political parties, both in the coalition government now and in the opposition. But first they need to come to an agreement on a key point of the referendum bill. Right?
Yeah, they're currently divided over the process of holding the public referendum. So broadly speaking, one side, which involves mostly members of the Senate, advocates for the adoption of a double majority principle, which would require two conditions for a referendum to be valid. And those conditions are, the first one is the turnout must constitute the majority of eligible voters, ensuring broad participation in the decision. And the second condition is that the referendum would only pass if it receives a majority of the votes cast.
And the other side, which involves mostly members of the House of Representatives or MPs, favors a simpler approach. calling for only a simple majority of votes to determine the outcome, regardless of the voter turnout.
Yeah.
No matter how many people turn out to vote, doesn't matter. It's the vote on the
the majority.
Yeah, it's majority that counts. So this is the big difference between these two camps.
Right.
So, and the two different sides came to a showdown on Wednesday during their meeting of the Joint Parliamentary Committee on the Referendum Bill. The committee composed of representatives from both the lower house and upper houses.
Yeah, correct. And that's why we have this headline, says breaking point, because the two sides come to a breaking point. So 13-9 votes, House of Representatives loses to Senate on referendum bill. 180-day wait likely for bill reconsideration. So we're going to explain that headline because there's a lot to unpack there. So 13 support the double majority while 9 don't, and 3 abstained. So the committee members who abstained were Police Major General Chatwat Sangpet, who is the chairperson of the committee, and the other 2 were from Phumjai Thai Party. Now remember, it's a common understanding that the Senate has the backing of Phumjai Thai Party. We're not saying that the party controls the Senate, it's just a common understanding. And the Phumjai Thai Party, Kun Anutin has actually said that he supports the double majority principle.
I think it's quite a well-known fact that even though the Senate is supposed to be politically independent, right? But we know that, we all know that many of the senators are closely associated with Phumjai Thai Party or have the support of the party.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise that the stand being taken by the majority of the Senate on this issue of the referendum and the stand taken by Kun Anutin, the party leader, are the same.
So what happens next is that the draft will go back to each house for redeliberation, and if one of them does not agree with the draft, they can vote against it. But that means consideration of draft law will have to be suspended or shelved for 180 days before being revisited.
So after 180 days, that is 6 months, quite a long time.
Yeah.
The members of the lower house, the House of Representatives, can override the Senate's objection and revisit the bill, take up the bill once again, and if the bill manages to get the majority of the MPs, then it can be pushed through.
Yeah. So what does this all mean exactly? It is possible to view it as a quiet confrontation between two parties within the coalition.
I think
Pheu Thai and Phumjai
of course,
Thai.
I mean, politically speaking, Pheu Thai and Phumjai Thai Party are supposed to be allies, right? They are.
Yeah, they are allies in theory.
In theory. and in practice also, because they are in the same coalition
Correct,
government.
yes.
But deep down inside, they don't really trust each other. And they even see each other as rivals in the next general election.
Yeah.
So it would not be a surprise if from this point on there will be more points of contention between the two parties. And their disagreement over the mode of the referendum is already a testament of their different stands on many issues.
Yeah, I guess so, because the core purpose of having a referendum is obviously amending the constitution or writing a new one, depends. And it's still a very contentious issue, and the effect of delaying the referendum may, in a way, lead to a delay in constitutional amendment.
And that's why Phumjai Thai Party is being seen as having gone back on its words about amending the constitution. Don't forget that during the election campaign last year, Phumjai Thai Party promised to try to amend the constitution, which is seen as not being democratic enough. But for some reasons, I mean, the parties, especially the party leader, has taken many steps back. And at one point, Kun Anutin, the party leader, said something like, amending the constitution was not something of a priority, well, not a priority for the party.
No rush for it.
No rush for
I
it.
mean, he can wait for the next parliament. So the existing parliament has about a little bit over 2 years.
All right.
Yeah.
So agreeing on the mode of the referendum
Yeah.
and amending constitution or even writing a new constitution will certainly be a big bone of contention.
Yeah.
Not only between these two parties, but also among many parties.
Yeah, it's going to be a long process, and we'll be sure to bring all the updates to you as well as the stories behind it and the explanation to help you make sense of Thai politics.
See you next week then.
Thank you for watching. Bye bye.